been an absolute disaster, but that's just the way it is on my films.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part 2. See part 1 of this series if you want to know the context, and if not, welcome. Let's begin. Jane meets up with Thor, and he's lost his confidence, so he fumbles around in trying to talk to her. And he points to space dolphins. It reminds me of Treasure Planet. I want to watch Treasure Planet now. Can I leave? I want off the ride. We are then blessed with Taika Waititi singing shittily on a microphone. And then he explains his dad sang the song to his other dad when they were mating and creating Korg. Yeah, so Korg's race is all men. All the men can procreate. Also, it kind of takes away from this moment in Ragnarok.
Oh, well, I tried to start a revolution but didn't print enough pamphlets, so hardly anyone turned except for my mum and her boyfriend, who I hate.
I guess it could have been a stepmom. Who the hell cares? Val is then asked if she has a special someone, and she says no. Then Korg, no, fuck it. Taika is like, is that because you lost your girlfriend in battle and never forgave yourself? And so you drown your sorrows in the bottom of a bottle to numb the pain? Taika is such a brain-dead writer that he needs to say this because he thinks he can get away with it because it's a serious narrative beat, but also, haha, so funny. It's cringe. Don't ever touch the script again, Taika. You suck.
I think something that we're always trying to do is how do we make exposition snappy and fun?
Because exposition in a film is boring, and it's always this, you're like, okay, I guess I'm absorbing information, but if you can do it in a fun way where, like, you know, the characters are all getting to take part, and it's also hard. Like, you've got 4 characters in the scene, and 2 of them are wearing red capes.
Taika, you can say it's snappy, but can we please be honest for once and just admit that you are awful when it comes to exposition? Especially when it comes to exposition that we already know from prior films. Just once admit that your joke is god-awful, just blatantly saying what a past relationship meant to a character. But then again, it's another joke stolen from a better film.
It sounds like you had a pretty special and intimate relationship with this hammer, and that losing it was almost comparable to losing a loved one.
Oh yeah, remember that joke? They made that into a narrative plot point in the film. Also, holy crap, looking through these clips as I edit, I tend to find some things that I just overlooked in the theater. One being the horrid lip sync. Like, just take a look at this.
When 2 cronins want to make a baby, they get together inside a mountain, and they go down to a little lava pool, and they hold hands over the hot lava, and then after a minute, they put their hands apart.
Thor says he wants to try again with Jane, to which Jane then blurts out,
Hey boss, I have a cancer.
And no word of a lie, my theater laughed. That's what happens, Taika. That's what happens when you have grilled it into the audience's mind that everything is a joke. That when you want to be serious, they can't tell the difference anymore. You have tonally broke them, and you're left with the knowledge that they will forget your movie in a week, as it was nothing but jokes and only brief moments of actual seriousness. And even then, they couldn't tell the difference. Thor and Jane reconvene, as he says he doesn't care and wants to spend the remaining time they have together and live like it's their last day of life. They kiss, and I feel nothing. Fucking Thor 1 has a more meaningful and romantic kiss than this donkey circus. Korg then asks if they'll make babies. Thor and Jane, I mean. And Val says it's unlikely. She knew Jane had cancer and didn't care to tell Thor. Val wanted Jane to come because she missed having a sisterhood and wanted a buddy to have while she murdered faceless goons because she's a selfish prick. What a great person. But oh no, her color is disappearing. We've entered the shadow realm, boys. And they crash into the moon because of the difference in perspective. Literally the joke from Rick and Morty. And I want to watch Rick and Morty now. I want to be free of this pain. Goodbye. We then take our sweet-ass time walking around, and we discover in Kratos' little tent hut that extends forever like it's fucking Harry Potter, that the trap, guess what, is a trap. I'm on the edge of my seat here. Jane then cries it's a trap, like she's Admiral fucking Akbar from Star Wars. The same Star Wars that Natalie Portman was in, and she flings Stormbreaker into space. Also, side note, Jane picks up Stormbreaker from the floor and flings it into space. When last we saw Stormbreaker, it was in the safe hands of Thor. There's nothing that can explain this except for a cut scene. Honestly, Kratos could have just swooped in, take it while they're not looking, and they don't have to fight. He doesn't because... Oh my god! I'm done! Oh god! Fuck! No, my god! Now, Kratos ties everybody up, and they are rendered completely ineffective. Kinda think we should be doing that, like, all the time, but I guess it makes sense here, cause we're in the Shadow Realm, folks. He says Val and him are the same because they were both betrayed by their negligent, avarice gods, and she sheds a tear. He then says that him and Jane are destined with the same fate, dying from an illness caused by their weapons. Don't worry, I ain't even close to done with that statement. He then focuses on Thor and threatens to kill both the gals in front of him if he doesn't call the axe. He finally does, and it's a big enough blast to break everyone free. So yeah, again, Thor just remembered he's Thor and has the power to summon lightning. Well, he needs his weapon to summon lightning. Who do you think he is? Not the god of hammers? It's not like in the last Thor film, also directed by Mushroom Brain Watiti, he learned to summon the power on his own. Learning he's the weapon. The only reason he forged Stormbreaker in the first place was to be able to kill Thanos. He doesn't necessarily need it to be powerful. So, we get a fight, and a fight it is. It's absolutely stunning visually. Like, this shit is impressive for a PS3 game. Oh wait, I forget it's a movie. In that case, well, look at this anime shit. Val stabs Kratos with the lightning bolt, but it's a red herring. Unfortunately, he's fine. Kratos then stabs Val with the lightning bolt, but it's a red herring. Unfortunately, she's fine. Well, you wanted to fight, right, bitch? Well, this is what you get. Note he doesn't stab her in the back with his sword that kills gods, but instead he does it with Zeus's lightning bolt. Lucky. What a useless weapon. And don't tell me she isn't a god. What the hell does that even mean anymore in this broken universe? Jane's like, oh shit, I'm still dying of cancer. And Val's been stabbed. We gotta get out of here. Then Thor gets strung up for a fourth time and breaks free and uses his signature move, Electric Beam. And Kratos can't take the force of it anymore, so he vanishes. Notice how long he holds against Thor's lightning. Notice that the sword is taking the full brunt force of that power. Seems like it has a lot of durability, you'd say. Huh. Let's keep that in mind, for future instances. So then they leave, but something happens. Something that shouldn't shock anyone, but nevertheless. Kratos sneaks up on them and nabs Stormbreaker. Thor loses his grip of the axe and is sent flying away, even though the Bifrost is dictated by Stormbreaker. So couldn't the weapon just drag Kratos and some monster stragglers back to Earth? Because of this, Kratos has exactly what he needs to be the next Thanos. I quiver with fear. So they crash land, the goats scream, it's very funny, and Jane, in her mortal form, passes out before reaching the hammer. Thor is then informed her body has been fighting off the treatments, and it's not looking good. Thor then sees Jane and tells her he's gotta go. Yeah, no shit, you have no time. Jane's like, you're going without me? And Thor's like, yeah, you have fucking cancer? And then he says that when she uses the power of Mjolnir, it drains her of her mortal strength, leading the cancer to grow faster. So you're telling me the hammer reformed to protect Jane from cancer, giving her the power of Thor, which in the long road ultimately kills her faster. I need you to realize how insane this is. The hammer destroyed by its former owner and left in the same spot for 6 years, reformed because Thor, despite still being worthy, asked it to always protect Jane. It didn't reform to protect her before she got into terminal status, and it didn't immediately go after her once she returned from the blip. Oh yeah, she got dusted. She confirms this by saying,
What's it been like, 3, 4 years?
8 years, 7 months and 6 days, give or take.
Looks like someone forgot the mythos. She says it's been 6 months since she got the news of her cancer, and it only waited until now to call her to New Asgard, turn her into the unworthy mighty Lady Thor, only to expedite the process of killing her. Yeah, okay. Sounds like a very thought out, well-written story. So after professing his love to her, he tells Jane to not pick up the hammer, and will return to her after saving the babies. He talks to Val, who reminds him of the mission like she's his fucking task giver in a video game. But I guess he needs to be reminded, as he does have the brain capacity of a moldy chocolate bar. She says, don't die, and he's like, I won't. Riveting friendship. And then Thor teleports to the center of the universe with the lightning bolt, because that's how it works now. Can anyone spot the problem? Shall I repeat the sentence? Thor teleports using the fucking lightning bolt, and he doesn't bring Mjolnir. He's gone, and he tells Jane that he won't be able to live with himself if she lifts the hammer up again, but forgets to bring it with him. This happens in the film. This past the shooting day, the editing phase, and the final cut. They thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. Who wrote this?
We shot this scene 3 times over the course of a year. Nature of movie making is sometimes, you or continue to write the film as you're in post-production.
Anyway, on to the final act, which I swear goes toe-to-toe with Black Widow for the most nonsensical, broken final act you can have in these Marvel sludge products. Kratos, axe in tow, summons the Bifrost, and we are on a timer. Should the power be charged up completely, the portal to eternity will open. So yeah, it's basically the final act again from Thor 1. Stop the Bifrost before it genocides an entire race. It's like poetry. It sucks. The temple rumbles from the force of the power, and a head of a celestial statue falls onto the kids. Cut to credits in a perfect world. But this isn't a perfect world, and we have 20 minutes left, so let's get this over with. Thor ex machina. He saves the kids, and using the weapon that we just saw has the capacity to teleport for some reason, gives the kids a one-way ticket home, and will take on the army of demons head on. Only we're not in that universe where that happens. Instead, we get something else. We are truly cursed with the worst timeline. You think I'm shitting you, don't you? You think I'm being a bit hyperbolic about the amount of damage this next scene causes. Well, I assure you I'm not. Remember, I don't write the stupid, I tell you the stupid. So Thor doesn't send the kids home. Instead, he asks them if they have battle experience. The kids are like, no, we're 9. And then Thor's like, well, no need to fret, you're Asgardian kids. And some of them are like, well, I'm a werewolf kid. And I'm a golden kid. And Thor's like, well, shut up and listen. He says grab anything to use as a weapon. And so they do. I can already see the gears turning in your minds. No way is Thor setting them up to fight with him. To fight the armies with him. That would be extremely irresponsible. Well, you'd be right, but something else happens. He begins another speech and holds Zeus's lightning bolt close and says, whosoever holds these weapons and believes in getting home, if they be true in heart, is therefore worthy, and shall possess, for a limited time only, the power. What in the 9 realms of fuck? Thor gives his power to the kids, which charges up their weapons and bodies. He then leads them into battle and fights Kratos, whilst leaving the kids to take on the monsters. What is this new devilry? Why must you torment me so? Do you realize what you have done? Thor, at any time, could have bestowed his powers and worthiness to whomever he bloody wants this entire time. Why didn't he use this with the team during the wars? Why not give it to the fledgling rebels during Ragnarok? Don't tell me that it's different. It's not like he could do this with Mjolnir or Stormbreaker. Because to that I say, get off my ass. In this very film, he bestows his powers to Jane on accident. Don't tell me it's different because it's Zeus's weapon. He specifically says his power, and before bestowing it, he calls the lightning with his hands. So yeah, it's only selective when Waititi remembers he doesn't need a weapon to bring the thunder. This is so bloody broken, I'm surprised this didn't take everyone out of the film immediately. What is happening in Phase 4? Every surviving character that lived to have another outing is ruined and summarily fucked in terms of morals and powers, except for fucking Spider-Man. Fuck off. So the kids are winning, but Thor sucks because obviously, and then we get the scene we got in Endgame. But this time, less badass, less satisfying, and even more fucking illogical. Jane arrives to save Thor before he takes the sword to the chest, and she arrives to the absolute dismay of Thor. But they have to defeat Kratos, so they begin their double team fuck session. They split as Thor has to stop Stormbreaker, so Jane fights Kratos, and the dialogue during this fight is hilarious cringe, and is crystallized by a horrible delivery. Kratos says that she's lost, and calls her Lady Thor. Jane gets triggered by this, and says,
first off, the name is Mighty Thor! And secondly, if you can't say Mighty Thor, I'll accept Dr. Jane Foster! Thirdly, eat my
No! No! It was at this moment I wondered what my time would have been spent doing had I not wasted it watching this. I don't know if Portman could have delivered that line any worse, but I'm sure she did her best. Also, lady isn't disrespectful, you cow. It's the equivalent term of sir. I mean, fuck. Lady Sif is in this movie. Like, he's not trying to be disrespectful at all. If anything, he's being the most respectful. And don't get pissy when he doesn't call you Mighty Thor. You stole Thor's name, hammer, and clothing, and expect to have everything you want just like that. Also, Taika, telling me not to call someone something will lead me to call them that out of spite. I thought you of all people would figure this out, seeing as you have the brain of a 7-year-old. A compliment, no doubt, in your feeble, warped view on the world. Meanwhile, Thor is like, Stormbreaker, what are you doing? I'll help you, let go of my friend. And I just kinda wanna die in Minecraft. Then the axe falls, and Thor's like, yes, I knew you could do it. But unbeknownst to the mighty boar, the portal is open. The process is done. Anyway, he throws Stormbreaker to Axel, who beams the kids back home. Jane isn't looking too hot, so Thor takes on Kratos, but they are caught in the bind, and just can't break free out of it. Even though Kratos can be reverting back to the shadows whenever he wants, and Thor has the power of God. But then Thor, just not wanting to use his powers, leans the sword to a position where Jane can destroy it. Now, don't call me crazy, but I thought the sword was more durable. I guess I was just wrong. But the sword is also a rule-breaking asshole and starts to reform itself. Jane then uses her Lego hammer to trap the pieces of the sword, but some pieces are slipping through the cracks. So, in one last desperate attempt, she summons her powers, well, Thor's powers, to destroy the pieces by clanking them onto the floor. Cool. And then what happens? Well, Kratos sees the portal and just walks through it. Thor doesn't stop him or even try. We just cut back to the portal and he's just going through it. Good job. You had one job. Stop the Bifrost, stop Kratos. Remember what he did in Thor 1, destroying the Rainbow Bridge and saving the Jotuns? Why didn't he just destroy the axe, imbue it with the lightning of Russell Crowe, and end the beam, or just step in front of the beam and take the full brunt of it? That would have been cool. So because of his inaction, Kratos is before the living embodiment of the universe. Literally. Thor's like, hey! Stop! And then Kratos is like, bruh, I've come this far and you think I'm seriously gonna stop now? Thor's like, listen, I may have been in a state of utter comatose throughout this film, but I just thought of a really good idea. How about you wish for your daughter to come back to life? And then we realize something. Kratos was corrupted by the sword. The sword wanted him to kill all the gods. Wanted the Bifrost to send them to eternity and wish for a pantheon holocaust. Kratos has basically been a puppet, so anything he does now is actually what he wants. Meaning, yes folks, yet again we are subjected to another corrupted Marvel villain. Thor's like, well, make your wish, I don't care. Jane's gonna die, so whatever you do, I'd like to spend the next couple of minutes with her. Imagine if Kratos was like, nah, fuck it. You are so cosmically lucky that he does what he does, cause you decided to choose love. Yeah.
And I believe in love.
Kratos then sees Thor holding a dying Jane and breaks down into tears. But because the writers at Marvel think our brains are made of gelatin, we get a flashback of what Kratos is thinking about. How it looks like him and his daughter. I know! My God! So yeah, Kratos wishes for his daughter to come back and that's it. No one can ever come to eternity and wish for anything. It's done. It served its purpose. Forget about it like it never happened. Thor says goodbye to Jane and they share a final unheard catchphrase and she turns to stardust. Weird. I thought you needed to die during the battle to go to Valhalla. I'm only following your rules, Taika. Don't look at me like I'm the retard. Yeah! Then Kratos is like, hey, you mind watching her? But then he dies. He even says out loud, I'm dying because I failed math and can't put 2 and 2 together. Cut to Taika's narration. He says that Dr. Jane Foster's sacrifice saved the universe, and she teaches us what it all means to be worthy. So yeah, it's like Thor didn't even fucking exist in this retelling. What was the point? Even though he stopped the murder wish, he turned Kratos to the light side of the Force. But nah, Jane was a girl boss. She has a statue now. Get over it, peasants. Deal with it. We get Val training the next generation of selfish, vanity-obsessed assholes, and we get our second and final appearance of Lady Sif. You remember Lady Sif, right? She trains Axel, and we cut to Thor and his daughter, niece, I don't know. Even the film is confused on what exactly their relationship is. We then get a cute scene where Chris Hemsworth talks to his real-life daughter about helping people and eating pan flaps. And then she tries to kill him after he asks her to wear her boots instead of her slippers, and then... Wait, what? What the fuck? So she has eye lasers, and she tried to kill Thor with them. We're supposed to laugh, so laugh at the funny. Then we close out on more fucking Taika voiceover, and Thor has Mjolnir now, and he gives Stormbreaker to the little girl, and they charge into battle to protect the nice aliens from the bad aliens. Cut to titles, which leads to credits.
They are simply known as Love and Thunder.
What in Odin's Fade did I just watch? I haven't seen this many rapid-fire dead jokes since perhaps TLJ or Ghostbusters 2016. The pillars of quality. This film is borked in terms of world building and tone, which you can say applies to most, if not all, of Phase 4's selection, minus No Way Home. Let's summarize. Don't worry, I'll do my best with what I can salvage as quick as I can.
You can do it!
Let's talk about the theme of the movie. Love is a very repetitive word that echoes throughout the script, but that's the extent of it. It's just a word, there's no meaning behind any of it, and if you want meaning to some of the scenes, then all I can do is point to the dreadful attempts at humor that undercut it all. Basically, the theme is... 'Cause I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all. How about the world building? Need I say more than Omnipotent City, a sword that can kill gods, that has an agenda of its own, that's existed since the dawn of fucking time, or the being that will grant one wish to whomever finds it first? You know what? I won't say more, other than it's just as shit as the other films in Phase 4 in their attempt to add to the mythos. I'll ruin your mythos in a minute, baby. Don't worry, Taika, give me a minute and I'll ruin your ethos in a minute. What about the plot? Well, we go from a god butcher who wants to end all the gods to a fun romantic comedy in space. With high stakes action, but also time to have some fun. No urgency, no agency, no express worry about how little time the characters actually have. We go from one scene to another with basically no continuity. And we have some contrivance on the menu, boys. Lucky Thor got to see an SOS beacon from Sif in the Guardian ship. Lucky she sent out a beacon when she did in the middle of battle. Lucky she said, "Thor, where are you? I need your help." If he missed that, if he missed her specifically, then the plot doesn't happen. Thor and Val think of Omnipotent City out of nowhere after thinking about raising an army. I can think of a couple people that may want to join your army if you told them it meant saving an entire race of people. The story is struggling to make sense, and is downright afraid to be serious and mature, resorting to comedy and safe humor whenever the grounds call for less sadness. And the amount of horrible, executed, awkward, woefully unfunny jokes is too many to count. It's frankly impressive how badly the comedy's churned out, almost as if it was done on purpose, like a parody. Take the comedically stilted theater scene, for example. The only purpose it has is to inform the people who don't know, or the crayon-eating babies in the audience, how Mjolnir got destroyed. So when you subtract the narrative purposes, all you're left with is embarrassing parody level jokes, but forgets what made the Ragnarok scene so funny.
It was indeed hilarious.
Despite being a comedic retelling of a prior dramatic scene, the whole purpose of the play is a vanity project orchestrated by Loki, disguised as Odin. So everything that is said and acted has a double meaning. It's what the actors were given, no doubt arranged by Loki, but serves as what Loki thinks of that event, making fun of how much Thor took it seriously. It's a play for Loki created and ordered by Loki. Everything is playing out as it should, for lack of a better term. And Anthony Hopkins absolutely murders the role as Loki disguised as Odin, further adding another layer of gold.
Father?
Oh shit. My son Thor has returned. Greetings, my boy.
Oh, I like the statue. A lot better looking than he was when he was alive. A little less Weasley, less greasy, maybe.
But this time around, it's just, hey, let's do it again, but more cringe and more Melissa McCarthy. Any Melissa McCarthy is too much Melissa McCarthy. She's gonna be Ursula in the new Little Mermaid remake, by the way. Get ready for that. And the fight scenes are littered with plot armor and luck, both good and bad for the heroes. Like, you have a partial excuse for being that the main protagonists are gods and can take a punch, but when you resort to non-lethal blows and the old pick up and toss, you just shake your head and roll your eyes. Now I get it. The times haven't always been easy for the film film industry. But the need to rush out these unfinished films to meet your stockholders' quota lead to some of the jankiest and in some cases ugly instances of CGI. The crunch time for these artists is incomprehensible, and God knows they don't get enough respect or appreciation on both sides.
Does that look real? In that particular shot, no, actually.
And may I say, though I love Michael Giacchino and his soundtracks, this time around I'm left with no notable tracks or anything to grasp. In short, it's forgettable, which is a shame, but it matches everything else in the film, so at least it has consistency going for it. Giacchino also continues the trend of creating a new theme for Thor, as the last 3 films have all had different composers, and no overarching theme, so yeah. Now, shall we talk about the characters?
But Little King, films are a visual medium. The writing doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Movies, at their core, are the writing. It is the foundation in which everything else follows. If it's faulty, shaky, or broken, the entire film falls apart. Visuals can only save a piece of shit for so long until you realize that it's still a piece of shit covered in rainbow paint. So let's end that conversation, yeah? Or do you have to defend your sacred cow at the cost of sacrificing your standards every single time? Well, give it a week and a half and they'll turn on it as well. Only to move on to the next product, because that's how these films are supposed to be consumed. One-offs. The pattern does not dictate for a repeated viewing. How about we start with the Guardians, as they're only in the film for 5 minutes. Don't blame anyone for feeling cheated by that creative decision, especially when we have half of the promotional material being like this.
The galaxy needs its Guardians.
You said this would be a relaxing holiday! Well, look who it is!
Today, we'll go down in history. I'm putting together the greatest team ever. The Guardians.
I am Groot!
That seems a bit dangerous.
This! I come here to raise an army of the universe. I come here to raise an army. Today, we'll fight!
It's the best Thor film yet.
Doesn't that sound good?
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Well, everyone seems in character, that meaning everyone is in their character in a very surface level way. Rocket is a sharp-worded asshole. Groot is an idiot who has binoculars in his mouth. Wait, aren't you supposed to be a teenager? Why are you acting like a toddler? Did you even watch the films, Taika? Nebula is a loud bitch and she screams a lot. Mantis is just there and has no speaking lines. Drax is Drax, and he's the one out of the 2 times I smiled during this slog of a movie. The part where he's headlocking one of the goats in his arm and saying that he loves them. Star-Lord is a supportive, sensitive guy, but like the rest of us, is sick of Thor and wants him as far away from us as possible. Like, I mentioned it earlier, but when they say farewell and jump to the farthest place they can to escape this 6-foot child, Rocket and Thor share no words. Nothing. Moving on to Korg, moving on from Korg, as I don't ever want to look or hear about this bundle of stones ever again. It doesn't help that it's the director, as every word made me want to drag my balls through glass and acid. Also, he finds a boyfriend to mate with, and his name is Dwayne. Dwayne the Rock. King Valkyrie, an unfit ruler who commercializes atrocities, and wants desperately to abandon her people and fight, only to get reminded of the negative aspects of always wanting to fight, and in the process losing her fucking kidney. That's not a character arc though, it just happens, her getting stabbed. It serves to have the retreat of the heroes and the loss of Stormbreaker. The character's there because of obvious predilection, when in reality she should have just stayed in New Asgard and do her fucking job. Zeus is a cringeworthy cartoon. His only purpose is to be both useless and plot critical. I don't know how he knows about Kratos' plan to reach eternity, but somehow he does. Him in the Greek pantheon has existed the entire time, and I shouldn't be surprised by the ass world building, and neither should you. It's nice to see Russell Crowe, and he seems like he's having fun, but he serves as a post-credit stinger with his son Hercules. Wouldn't it be more meaningful if, in the face of annihilation, Zeus actually does come to the aid of Thor with a team of gods, having a theme of coming together to defend life and the future of millions? It would be a way better final battle than leading an army of children into war. The fuck? Seriously, what a waste of Russell Crowe. Lady Jane the Mighty. She's unworthy, when you think about it. Both Cap and Thor face trials and tribulations, and in the end are worthy to lift the hammer. But because of a loophole, she gets to lift it, even though it's clearly stated she isn't worthy. I honestly don't know why they bothered bringing back this character only to kill her off in the end. And seeing as there were like 4 different fake-out deaths, I'm shocked they committed to offing her. But she came, she girl-bossed, and then she's off to the Great Hall in the clouds. I think it's hilarious that they hyped her up, giving her the name Mighty Thor, having his hammer and wearing his clothes, but God forbid you refer to her as Lady, you sexist pigs. And was I the only one to watch her struggle with terminal illness, and couldn't help but think of the isolationist country with balls that can heal spinal injuries, flowers that can make you a super soldier, and literal magic nonsense? Also, you can just teleport to the center of the universe, apparently, so why couldn't Kratos use a sling ring? Why bother with the Shadow Realm and Stormbreaker? Ugh, never mind. Speaking of which, Kratos. What a waste of a villain. Spent 5 minutes with him and we only see him kill one god. The others are already corpses. I wouldn't blame you if you mistook him for a half-decent antagonist, when the bulk of my compliments for this guy is Bale's acting alone. Whenever he's on screen, he does take the spotlight. Just ignore all the characters' inconsistencies. What is to say besides the stale and uninspired new trend running with Marvel villains in Phase 4? Corruption. Taskmaster was mind-controlled. She had no control over her actions, no agency. Wenwu was being manipulated by an otherworldly dragon monster from another realm. The fuck was even that movie? Wanda being controlled by a dark book, being fully corrupted, yet still enacting her bullshit plan even after the book was destroyed. And then there's the death of the villain by suicide or self-sacrifice, after seeing the folly in their goals. Wenwu sacrifices himself for his son after turning good. Icarus fucking kills himself after being defeated. Wanda kills and self-sacrifices herself. And now Kratos also turns good and dies. How thrilling. He thinks he brings peace by killing all gods, including peaceful gods, but you stop and realize he doesn't actually think any of this. The fucking sword does. And if you need the Bifrost to reach eternity, why didn't you go to the foundry in Nidavellir and order Peter Dinklage to make another weapon capable of summoning the Bifrost? In conclusion, awful character, waste of potential. And finally, the Thor of Thors, the one and only. Let's begin where it starts. Thor is on a journey of self-discovery and thinks being with a team will help that search become clearer. It doesn't, and his apathy infects everything it touches, destroying everything it touches, and cause disdain and downright contempt with the Guardians. His wanton need for destruction is only to facilitate praise for his superior accomplishments. He doesn't actually care for the cause for which he's fighting for. He's lost the motivation and doesn't bother with knowing the consequences. Regression doesn't come close to defining this.
We pretend on Asgard that we're more advanced, but we come here battling like Bildschneid. They trample everything in their path. In my youth, I called it war. In my youth, I called it war.
It doesn't help that Waititi makes every single scene a comedic sketch. No doubt a mix of joke mandates from Disney and a blend of Waititi's brilliant writing. What we get is essentially joke overload, no space for anything that isn't levity, leaving Thor's attitude to be a bland and uninspired joke, who loves to act all heroic while dripping with self-esteem issues. He conjures a new suit to balance for feeling one-upped. He makes irrational and hasty decisions while at the same time forgetting or ignoring the stakes and limited time. Remember, if they fail, it's yet another universe-wide genocide. And Thor doesn't care. But he does. But he doesn't. But perhaps he does. Who knows? He and his axe argue with each other, causing an unironic obstacle in the plot. Why do you hate Stormbreaker so goddamn much, Taika? What's with your excessive need to assassinate characters as well as their weapons? Honestly, it's impressive you went there, being the only creator I can think of who ruins pieces of weaponry all throughout the runtime and not have it even come close to being clever. And also remember this from Endgame?
No, give me that. You have the little one.
When given the option between Mjolnir or Stormbreaker, he obviously goes with Stormbreaker. So your hilarious joke doesn't even work on the most basic level. Oh, and by the way, I'm not a fan of Thor having the hammer again. I kinda liked the finality of it being destroyed and Thor having to craft a new weapon, a weapon of a king, from scratch. Fuck me, Marvel, not only do characters come back to life, but not even weapons can stay dead. I've said it before, but man, I'm so damn impressed how many narrative beats they'll backtrack and change their mind on. I've lost count. And yeah, now we can definitely add Thor to the ever-growing and ever-infuriating list of characters that have been summarily character assassinated. Endgame did nothing for Thor in the long run and actively damaged him.
You know, I had it all backwards. I had it all wrong. For the first time in my life, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do.
What will you do?
I'm not sure. For the first time in 1,000 years, I have no path.
That's great! That's just great! Now where the hell are we, huh?
They made it very, very clear they had no idea what to do with Thor's character. Or, and unfortunately more likely, they didn't care, leaving us with very shaky ground. However, Taika saw that ground and gleefully obliterated it.
But Thor has always been a moron. Remember the other films?
I love how some people think that's the same as all the inane crap he does in this, but whatever. This is a film about space Vikings intended for man-children. He doesn't fight what he hates, he saves what he loves. You can have a story where love powers the heroes, making them even more powerful and dangerous. Take Scarlet Witch or Thor himself from Infinity War, bringing with them the passion for the ones they love and fighting to protect or avenge them. In this, Thor fights for love because love. He has become the one thing he swore to rise above. A vain, greedy, cruel boy. And Taika's not making a point of how apathy can regress you and actively harm your interests. He just thought it would be funny. Damn the continuity. Damn the mythos. Damn the established character. This is by far the worst Thor film. It doesn't even come close on the scale. For as forgettable as The Dark World is, it's a vastly superior film. And Thor is Thor.
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
This film slides well next to the other Phase 4 films, though, settling for a dismal 2 out of 10 next to the others of the same aptitude. Be proud, Watiti. Laugh all the way to the bank, because oh how the mighty have fallen if you think your piece of cow shit will be remembered fondly, and not remembered for being the most Marvel movie. The most overproduced and factory-made movie in the lot of 30. Good job. Better luck next time with your Star Wars project, which I'm sure will definitely happen, no doubt. Marvel has become what people have said it was for years, and in the process, it only confirms the worst. The formula works, perfected by talented writers in the past, but solidified by a returning audience with mediocre standards. It is in the end our fault for accepting this trash, defending this nonsense, and encouraging half-assed, lazy, conveyor belt content. Never expect to get another Civil War, Homecoming, or Guardians of the Galaxy. Just more Ant-Man and the Wasps, Captain Planks, and Love and Thunders. I hope it was worth it. I really do. James Gunn, you're our only hope with Guardians Volume 3. You better not fuck it up. Ooh, that's enough complaining from me. How about some positives? Try to be nice for once. The acting was good for mostly everybody in the cast, Christian Bale being the standout. Russell Crowe was neat, some of the CGI was genuinely beautiful, and I only hope that people who deserve more recognition than a director who writes it off as bad speak out more on this bullshit. Hemsworth looks like he's having a blast, and it's always fun to see him as Thor, even superficially. Seeing him and his real-life daughter did get a smile out of me, just ignore the murder attempt and reckless parenting. Ignoring that, it's pretty cute. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you guys so much for the comments on the last part. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you have something specific for me to tackle in the future, please link them below. Lend me whatever feedback you guys have, it helps a ton. And with that, I bid you farewell. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Not only would an actual astrophysicist say this, Jesus Christ. Not only would an actual astrophysicist say this, but none... Wow. This gives Jane enough They recreate... Oh my god. Remember that from the trailer? The thing fans were Remember that from the trailer? The thing Wow. Coda. What are you doing?
Thor Ragnarok was a good film, and I felt it was going to be very hard to top that. So where do you take a character like that?
Yeah.
Then we realised what you least expect from Thor, or what you least expect that you're going to want to see, is Thor going through a midlife crisis.
I think it's time for your first beer. What do you say? Delicious.
Huh. Okay, cool.
Why do you think the character Thor resonates so much with audiences around the world?
Well,